family members, classmates from high school, college classmates, frat brothers. It is just an amazing thing to be here. Talk about in the book, we talked about a little bit more. Dallas means a lot in my life. I came down here every summer from 7th to 12th grade. I could always be 2 years older than I was at home, get into all type of mischief. And, I had some struggles in high school. My classmates know that. I barely graduated out of high school. I made a senior in jobs there, and that was only because the coaches liked me. I found out I was actually graduating, or I was in line to walk across the stage. That's how crazy it was. And I had some grades were not that great, and I got arrested, got in some trouble. And so I went to a smaller school in Oklahoma, and I got real disgruntled about that, and I ended up dropping out of school and coming back to Tulsa. And then I got injured while I was trying to work out. My cousin sitting over here. I used to see. I was a door-to-door. I don't know if they still do it like this anymore, but back in the day, you go to the barbershop or the hair salon, and people said I was the air freshener guy. So I know all about. So anyway, I ended up saying, you know what? I bump school, bump football. I'm not gonna be a millionaire selling air fresheners. I'm gonna move to Dallas, and I'm gonna talk to my girlfriend, who's not my wife. Give it up for my wife, Mia Fleming. She's a trooper. I talked her into jumping out of school. And we moved out here in Dallas, and we're gonna be rich. And we didn't get rich. We got broke. And I was all up in Keith's Bazaar, Big Keith's Bazaar and Keith's Park and Wheatland and Camp Wisdom selling air fresheners. And in 1996, we had wrecked our car. This is true.
I'm sure you sold me some.
I'll be right up there next to the D boys, selling sits. In 1996, it's October. Now, growing up, my first word in life was football. It was not mama, it was not daddy, football. That was the thing I wanted to do more than anything was to be a football player. And, you're growing up, you're living that life. We're going up in the 80s, 90s, so this is the height of the crack epidemic, gang epidemic. So we kind of live in this crazy life, trying to do crazy stuff. So going to play football, going to OU was my number one thing in my life. And we had a track. I would go see some of my cousins coming in. I would go from Carver to Booker T, Carver Middle School, to Booker T High School, to OU play football. The reason I tell you that is because OU versus Texas is a big deal.
Big deal.
Okay? That's like a holiday. Right? But I was so out of my mind down here selling cents. I had forgotten all about OU Texas. And I'm over in South Dallas at a place called Graham Barbershop. Anybody remember Graham Barbershops? That was one of my favorite locations. I made a lot of money in Graham. And I'm walking around, if you know South Dallas, that's a black area. At least it was 30 years ago.
It is still.
And I'm seeing all these white boys walking around with OU jerseys. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Excuse me. And I realized, oh man, OU Texas is going on right up the street because the Cotton Bowl is right up the street.
Right.
I go inside of the barbershop and they have a TV on. And on the TV, my homeboy from North Tulsa, my teammate, Booker T, a guy by the name of Demond Parker, was one of the best college running backs in the history of the game. He's running up and down the field. And so it hit me right then. I said, what the hell is going on? My homeboy's up there running up and down the field on TV, OU Texas. I mean, my ASS is in there selling air fresheners. Living in an apartment with roaches and see, I grew up low income, but we didn't grow up roaches. Especially my wife, bless her heart, she's middle class. She certainly, this wasn't a life for her. I call it my semester in life, but that experience, I wrecked my car. We had to come back home, defeated. We didn't want to come back home because our parents didn't want us to leave. We had to come back home. It was very humbling. But over those next 7 years, that's when I earned my associates, my bachelor's, my master's, and my law degree. Went to Africa twice, went and studied at Oxford in England. It's like, that semester of life put me on this path that I'm sitting here talking to you today.
Wow. But we're glad. It's quite a journey. Quite a journey. And when you said Grand Barbershop, I just had too many flashbacks. But they have a barber college, yeah. I mean, for real.
I'll tell you, I understand this, that, other thing.
Have you ever seen the book yet or read the book yet? Anybody seen, read? Okay, please, Redeem a Nation. And it's very interesting. You use a lot of spiritual language in the book, but also in the title, Redeem, Rescue a Nation, the century-long battle to restore the soul of America. If I remember correctly, you didn't even know about the Tulsa race massacre until your junior year in college. Is that right?
That's right.
Junior year in college. How are we going to restore a wound in a nation that's always trying to erase the memory?
Right. You know, and that's what before you can even deal with anything, everybody knows this, you got to be able to identify with the issue.
Come on.
Right. And so part of this work that I've been a part of now for almost 30 years is to call out what's actually happening in a very clear manner and then provide answers or at least options to try to fix it. And so when you talk about us growing up, those of us who are from North Tulsa, how many people from North Tulsa in there? Well, we got a lot of North Tulsa down here at DFW area. You know, I grew up in North Tulsa. I went to George Washington Carver Middle School on Greenwood Avenue, and we didn't learn about the massacre. We didn't know anything about it. And so
In Tulsa.
on Greenwood. On Greenwood. Now, I told you I wasn't the best student, so maybe if they did teach about it that day, I wasn't in there.
No, but seriously, I know too many people from Tulsa and Oklahoma City who said they had never heard of it, especially as 2021 came in.
Oh, yeah. It was a 75-year conspiracy of silence. So meaning that the city and the state and the county who perpetrated the massacre, to be clear, this was a state-sponsored domestic terrorism attack. It was the greatest domestic terrorism attack in the history of this country. We're talking about 1,550 homes and businesses burned to the ground. Over 8,000 people made homeless overnight. Over 3,000 people disappeared. I really want you to understand when I say disappeared. What I mean is on May 30th, your neighbor was across the street, and on May 31st, his house or her house was burned to the ground, and you didn't see that person. You don't know if they burnt up in a home. You don't know if they got killed and thrown in the Arkansas River. You don't know if they're in one of these mass graves that they denied actually existed. But as we speak today, they're digging these mass graves up with bullet holes in them. I say all that to say this was a very, very traumatic event that happened. It was not something just spontaneous and boom, it was over with. This was over a 36-hour period of time where bombs were dropped from air on Black people, where people were murdered, people were hacked to death, people were strangled to death, people were burned to death, people were shot to death, people were drowned to death. People had everything that they ever known stripped and stolen from them. And so that was real trauma for Black people, that Black people didn't want to talk about this. But the fear of retribution, you're talking about the very people that perpetrated this harm, they just went on with their very day, continuing living right next door in Tulsa. So Black people didn't talk about this because they were afraid. And white people wanted to wipe this away like it never happened. And they were very successful for almost over 75 years, right? 75 years. So a person like me would know about it. And so I go to the University of Oklahoma. I'm sitting in intro to African and African American Studies class. My professor was a great guy named Dr. Kepler Nurakim. He's about 6'5", 330 pounds. He had long locks down the back of his back, and his head was shaved on the side like a mohawk. This is a very intimidating individual. And he had a big booming James Earl Jones voice. And one day in class, I'm an athlete, I'm trying to chill. And he's talking about Tulsa and the massacre, and these Black people were rich and all these things. I'm like, man, that's not true. I'm sitting back there, I'm like, man, I really don't want to engage with this guy, but I couldn't take it. I raised my hand and said, Dr. Kim, I'm from North Tulsa. That's not true.
Right.
He humiliated me, embarrassed me, as he should have.
Wow.
And he told me at the end, he said, you need to go talk to your elders. You need to do your research. And he lit a spark in me that's never been extinguished. He lit a flame that burns so strong that I would always learn about my community. I would educate others, and I would fight for justice and reparation for what happened. So that's one of the reasons I wrote this book. I don't want anyone to say they didn't know, particularly a kid from North Tulsa, a kid from Oklahoma, to write something that could be out here as an extension of the work. It's so important because learning this history changed my life, the trajectory of my life.
No question. No question. So one of the things that you self-described the book as a blueprint, and I find it, and forgive the language, but we're in church, providential and prophetic and poetic, that this book came out now in this political environment. And again, I hope everyone reads this. You say in the blueprint, you say this is a blueprint. My question is, what are the non-negotiable steps that we must take according to the blueprint in order to actually redeem this nation, but also for us to experience reparatory justice? Because you are unapologetic in seeking repair for those who have been broken by what this country has done. What are the non-negotiable steps?
Yeah. Well, one of the non-negotiable steps, great question, is I want everybody to understand that reparations is not radical. What's radical is when you refuse to pay what you owe. That's radical.
Thank you.
And so we have to believe that wholeheartedly. Also, we have to understand as it talks about reparations, and we're talking about the president giving $1.7 billion in reparations to January 6th. It lets you know that America is not afraid of reparations. No, America knows how to do reparations. Reparations have been given to so many groups and organizations. And in fact, reparations is done each and every day in our court system, every day. If blue car hits red car, and red car's driver breaks his leg and missed time from work and his car is damaged, guess what? When you pay the medical bill to set the leg, that's reparations. When you fix the dent in the car, that's reparations.
Yeah.
When you pay for the time off from work, that's reparations. When you pay for the pain and suffering, which is different from time off from work, which is different for the medical bill, which is different for the dent in the car, that's reparations. So my point is, we do this each and every day. It's a problem with Black people. But as Black people, we cannot accept that, even mentally. Not enough Black people believe in their heart that reparatory justice is due and can happen. So, yes, we have to believe it. And just remember, again, they'll tell you all the things. Oh, it's been too long. Oh, we don't know who actually enslaved who. Oh, we don't know who we're going to pay. Oh, we don't know. That's the thing that makes Tulsa so important. Because we still have a living survivor.
Yeah. We do.
Mother Leslie Benefield Randall.
Right.
111 years old.
Just amazing.
And let me tell you, being in her presence and the presence of those other survivors, many of which I've worked with for years and passed on, it's truly been in the presence of God and living with somebody, working with someone who completely embodies the Black experience. A woman born in 1914, going through Jim Crow, going through sharecropping, going through domestic work, going through the Depression, going through the World War I and World War II, going through the massacre, going through urban renewal, having a home taken, and still believing that justice and reparations can come. If a woman of that age can go to Washington, D.C., can go to court and sit in courtrooms with us for hours, believing, we have to believe. Because Greenwood was created in just a moment just like this, the color of the nadir.
Say that.
The nadir was a moment just like, I call it MAGA delusion in the book. I'm gonna get in trouble with my wife to let me talk about the MAGAs. She don't like that. I call it MAGA delusion. What I mean is this is an era of anti-blackness, violence. It's gonna get worse. But the nadir was a period between 1877 and basically the Civil Rights Movement in 1960, where Black people were lynched daily. Massacres happened all over this nation. The massacre happened in Tulsa is not unique. Just the size of the scale of what happened is unique.
Right.
Penis farmers, sharecropping. But doing all of that worse that time, we were still building HBCUs that are still existing today.
Come on.
We were still building Black denominations that are still existing today.
Right.
We were still building sororities and fraternities that are existing today during the nadir period.
That's it.
And during the nadir period, we built Greenwood, the greatest Black city in the history of this country, the most organized, most prosperous. The point is, we have to take that spirit of belief and resilience. That's what's going to keep us to going today.
I love it. I love that. Give it up, y'all. Listen, some good stuff. Listen, I forgot to say we are online, and so you know, what do y'all do? Share, like, subscribe, do that, but especially do some sharing right now because people need to get in on this conversation. I wanted to ask you this, and since you brought up Mother Randall, also his Mother Fletcher, Mother Randall, Uncle Ellis, and three amazing people that you've had the opportunity to work with and to represent. What did sharing with them teach you about justice that you didn't get in law school?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you mentioned Mother Viola Ford Fletcher, who passed away in November at 111 years old, and her baby brother, Hughes Van Ellis, who we call Uncle Red, who passed away at 103 in October of 2023. And actually, he passed while I was down here in Dallas. There's another Dallas bill. Wow. I think it's really important to say their names, but also to understand what they taught me and what all survivors taught me is the value of resilience. Because the five Greenwood principles that I identify in the book that created Greenwood and will recreate Greenwoods around this nation, the fifth principle is willful resilience. And I think about that willful resilience, I think about another survivor that I represented that some of you may, if you're a jazz fan, you may have heard of a guy by the name of Hal Singer. Hal Singer is a very famous jazz artist, also a massacre survivor. He died in August of 2020. And I filed his new lawsuit in September 1 of 2020.
Right.
And Hal Singer was living in France at the time that I was talking to him about this case. Now, you have to remember that I am standing on the shoulders of powerful men and women who's been fighting this fight for a long time. And Hal Singer was represented by one of my mentors, Professor Charles Ogletree of Harvard University.
Great man.
In the early 2000s. And we had a litigation at that point. I was a law student in the Bay.
He used to visit us every year at Friendship West.
Wow.
Professor Ogletree.
Professor Ogletree.
He was a Cowboys fan like crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd take me to the games.
Great guy. Miss him. In that litigation, to answer your question, we had over 100 living survivors. And we filed that case.
When was this? What year was this?
This is in 2003.
Man, you still had 100 living
I had
survivors.
100 living survivors in 2003. We filed that case. That case is dismissed in 2004. We go to the Supreme Court. That case is dismissed. That was Supreme Court 2005. 2007, we started working with the late, great John Conyers to introduce a bill called the Greenwood Accountability Act. In 2007, we go to DC, we do the whole thing, we have a hearing, and we had this one guy, y'all may have heard of this guy. He was a little known representative from Indiana. He said, man, this is a bad deal, but it's just been too long. His name was Mike Pence. You may have heard of him.
Unfortunately.
And so that bill languished for years and years and years, never getting a hearing. So fast forward to 2019, 2020, I'm getting ready for this new litigation. I'm talking to Hal Singer. He's in France because he moved to France in the 60s because racism is so bad here in the United States. He was on hospice. He was blind. He had little time to live. And so his wife, Arlette Singer, they would be coordinating because they're in France. We got to figure this out, how we can, the timeline. Right. And I felt so bad. I felt like I was bothering them. And I told the wife, I told her that I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop calling y'all. And she admonished me and said, Hal is gonna fight for what happened to his sweet parents and his community until he dies. She said, I'm gonna send you something. She sent me this letter that Mr. Singer had written to Professor Ogletree. And in the letter, it's after what I just explained. We had lost in 2003. We had lost in 2005, we had lost in 2007. He writes this letter in 2011. And he said, Professor Ogletree, I want to thank you for everything you've done on our behalf. And as Black people, we very rarely get what we deserve. He said, however, we must always fight for our rights and our dignity. And that's what I learned from these survivors. We must always fight for our rights, but also our dignity. And what does that mean to fight for your dignity? We're going to lose way more than we're going to win. But the dignity is in the fight. Come on. Come on. That's the dignity. I like that. And that's the dignity that started in Greenwood in 1921 because the Black men, they didn't just fall down. They didn't just lay down. It took them over 12 hours. It took them getting thousands of whites. It took them bringing the National Guard before they were able to destroy our defenses, get into our neighborhood, and destroy everything. Because those Black men and women was fighting not just for their rights, but for their dignity. Come on. And in the moment that we're living in right now, we have to fight for our dignity. When they put a $1.7 billion reparations for criminals, it's a slap to us because we know we're not criminals. We know what our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-greats have done in this country, what we're owed. Yeah. So we must fight for our rights and our dignity, and the dignity comes in the fight. Yeah. Say that. That's the word. So a part of that, one of the things you share is that our survivors want, as much as they want compensation, they also want acknowledgement, because I think that is a part of fighting for dignity. You don't just overlook what you've done to me. Right. And so how do you draw the line between acknowledgement, repentance, and repair? Well, that's a great question because sometimes people want to skip. Yeah. And just skip steps. Yeah. Need all of that. Yeah. They want to say, if they will give you an apology, that's all they want to give. Yeah. If they will acknowledge you, that's all they want to do. They don't want to do the next step. It's like reconciliation, Anybody that's married, you can't just say, I'm sorry, and it's over, and that's it. If there's the issue, you got to do some reparatory justice. You can't just say, I'm sorry, and move on. But that's what they want to do for us. And so full reparations requires all of those steps. It requires acknowledgement, apology, restitution, compensation, and then the policies that won't happen again. It's very important that you understand those are the 5 things of reparations. And restitution and compensation are not the same thing in the law. So the lawyers are there, they'll tell you that. Restitution is just putting me back where I was. That's restitution. Then you compensate me for what I am owed based upon the damages to me. And that's what we're always talking about. We want full reparatory justice. And so one of the things that was so hurtful for our survivors back in the early 2000s, because remember, as we just talked about, for over 75 years, nobody talked about the massacre, like it didn't happen. So our survivors at that time, people like Otis Clark and Dr. Olivia Hooks, and so many others, L. Joy McConaughey, they really believed that once the world knew what happened to them, they would get justice. And that was crushing.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, they just don't know. But now it's like, you actually know, and you still say no.
Yeah.
And that kills some of them.
Man.
That's very fast.
For real. For real. For real. That's real. So, and I want to stick with that then. You taught me something in the book. I want to make sure I get it right. The public nuisance theory, which talks about the fact that because it has not been acknowledged, there's been an ongoing, pain, the continuing of the trauma from 1921 because it never has been repaired.
Correct.
Never has been dealt with. And so forgive me, I'm a preacher, you in the church. So I want to just ask you, because that really resonates with biblical concepts of reparatory justice. And so my question becomes, because again, you're using redeem and restore and soul. And so I want to know, has your theology influenced your sense of law, or has your sense of law influenced your theology?
Yeah, well, I think it's both for me. My personal motto is law is my ministry, justice is my passion. And I grew up with a praying grandmother. And so as I talk about in the book, understanding the power of God and prayer and just my sense of justice from being, I grew up in the church. I think it's very, very important that we understand this is a spiritual fight, right? And I'm not the preacher, he's the preacher. But when I say a soul of America, in my office note, in the first page, I say, America's never had a soul.
Right.
To even think about having a soul, you have to repair the harms that created this country, which is the enslavement of Black people and the destruction and genocide of indigenous people.
Thank you.
And so you have to call a thing.
Right.
My grandma would say, what you do in the dark, come to the light, and then you can deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to bring these things to the light.
Yeah.
And so, law is my ministry and justice is my passion. I feel like I've been called for this life to do this work. I found out, and also at OU, this is funny, this is in the book. I'm a Creek Indian. I'm a Muskogee Creek Nation, Muskogee Creek Indian. A lot of people don't realize that there are Black people who are native and indigenous to this land. Yes. So on my father's side of the family, my family, anybody heard of Trail of Tears? The Trail of Tears is when they marched the so-called 5 civilized tribes out of the Southeast United States into what we now call Oklahoma, which is Indian territory. But why did they call these people the 5 civilized tribes? And this is the Choctaw. Anybody seen Sinners, the movie Sinners? Remember in the very beginning, the Choctaws was chasing the vampire? The Choctaws are one of these so-called civilized tribes. It's the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, the Cherokee, and the Seminole. They call them the civilized tribes because they adopted European ways of culture. English, Christianity, and plantation-style economies where they enslaved Black people. And so in this Trail of Tears, you had enslaved and free Black people that came to Oklahoma Indian territory in the 1830s. And some of those people were my relatives. One relative in particular to talk about why I see this as a calling is a man by the name of Cal Tom, also known as Cal Rico. He was a man that fought in the U.S. Seminole Wars in the 1820s. He came on the Trail of Tears, survived that. He survived the Civil War, where he became a chief of the Creek Nation because he saved the lives of thousands of Creeks and starving to death in a place called Fort Gibson. Then he became one of 5 individuals who negotiated and signed the Treaty of 1866 on June 14, 1866, 160 years ago. And in that treaty, he put in Article 2, which ended the enslavement of Creeks of African descent. This is my direct 4-time great-grandfather. He was a lawyer fighting for Black people. I didn't even know this. Now, my dad used to come over for visitation. He would tell me we had a chief and all that. I'm like, man, we don't have no car. There ain't no chief. We're broke. You talking about a chief. You don't have to lie to kick it. I went to OU and it was true. I learned all about that.
Wow.
I learned about my history. I learned about my genealogy. And so one thing I'm trying to encourage people on this tour, as much as people ask me, what can we do? Start with learning your own history.
Say that.
Your own history.
Right.
Because everybody in here has something that their family has overcome. And they've done something great, or they've had to run from something, they had to overcome a bankruptcy, some genealogy, something. Learn your own history. Because learning my genealogy put me on a path that you cannot tell me that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because Cal Tom did it. Because Jake Simmons Sr. did it.
Yeah.
You know, it's on down the line.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. So I want to talk about the whole court system.
Well, public nuisance, yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. So public nuisance, not to get too technical. It simply says Oklahoma has a law, about 17 other states, that if there is a continuation of a harm, then there's no statute of limitations, because that's the biggest defense. Statute of limitations basically says it's too late for you to sue. So that's the main thing they say. Hey, it's been too long. That's happened too long ago. But we were able, in Oklahoma, you guys heard about the opioid litigation. It's happening all over the nation. And Oklahoma was able to get a $470 million verdict against a bunch of opioid companies like Johnson & Johnson. And they went back to the 1980s on this opioid. So we were saying, man, they can go back to the 1980s. We should be able to go back because the harm is continuing. Right. And this is the way we explain it to the court. Y'all remember in 2011 when they had that huge BP oil spill down in the Gulf of Mexico? Remember that? Mm-hmm. And we all watched on TV as there's thousands of gallons of oil was just shooting out into the Gulf. Remember that? And they tried daily. They were trying to plug it. They couldn't plug it. That's the triggering act. That's like the bombs dropping. It's like the flames storm. It's like the mayhem. But at some point, they stopped the oil from gushing out, right? But the oil had already gushed out. Was it still causing problems? Yes. Is it still polluting the earth? Yeah. Still killing wildlife? That's the same thing. Just because they put out the flames of the massive, the harm was still ongoing. And they compounded the harm when they came in with urban renewal, which we call Negro removal. Right. It happened all over the nation. And so we were able to show that, and our mayor at the time, Mayor G.T. Bynum, whose family has been mayors in Tulsa going back to 1898. They've been a part of this, right? Yeah. He said in 2019 that the racial and economic disparities that we see in Tulsa is a direct result of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre. Sounds like continuing harm to me. What about y'all? What do y'all think? It's like continuing harm, right? And so we brought that case, and the great thing about the case is we were going to file a protest case, meaning we didn't know we had a real chance to. And in law, if you don't have what they call a meritorious case, you can get hit with sanctions, a Rule 11 sanctions, right? Ain't that right, Roslyn? My classmate there's a lawyer. We had decided that the centennial was coming. The city of Tulsa was whitewashing the massacre and trying to make themselves look good. They actually took out a full-page ad in the USA Today stand and said that Tulsa was leading the nation in racial justice. The city of Tulsa. I was so upset about that. So I'm gonna file this case. I don't care if I get fake sanctions. My wife, you guys just pray for me because she's like, don't do that. But when we filed a public nuisance, we had a real case. So in our case, we don't even mention the word reparations. We just going by the actual case. And they actually changed the law just to stop our case from being successful. Change the law. They don't just change the goalposts for black folks. They went to a different state.
Exactly. And then one white man don't score a touchdown. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'm running down like free about to score, and just somebody off the sideline come out of town.
Come on, man. Come on. And no penalty.
No penalty.
Right. So, how I remember this right, May of 22, a district court basically reversed itself and said you could proceed.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Supreme Court of Oklahoma basically squashed, and I'm not using legal terminology because I'm not a lawyer, but
that's good though.
But the Supreme Court squashed it, and so it's like whiplash.
Yeah, I mean, so actually on May 2nd, 2022, it's one of the greatest days of my life. We were at the Tulsa County Courthouse. There was hundreds of people. It was the most people that's ever been at a courthouse in Tulsa. Wow. We had people from all over the nation, but a lot of community folks. And I detailed this in the movie. You ever seen the movie like To Kill a Mockingbird? Not To Kill a Mockingbird. What's the movie with Samuel L. Jackson? Time to Kill.
Time to Kill, yeah.
It was that type of an atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So much that it was standing room only, and our judge said, you all can stay unless the fire marshal comes and make you all leave. And I walked into that room, and we had a 6-hour hearing, and our 3 survivors were there. We put on a great case. And normally what happens in the court is the judge, after something that long, the judge has said, we're going to take it under advisement, and we're going to issue a written order. But she said, I'm going to rule from the bench. And the way she set it up, she told the bailiffs to man the doors, and she don't want to hear any noise. So in my mind, she got to rule against us.
Right.
And then she said, granted in part, because the motion to dismiss, so they wanted their motion to be granted. She said, granted in part, denied in part. It was dead silence. Nobody knew what that meant.
Right.
But in my mind, I was just screaming, we survived! And I screamed, we survived! And I jumped as high as that ceiling up there. And then we went out into the loudest, most powerful chant of justice for Greenwood! Justice for Greenwood! Inside the courtroom. This does not happen.
Right.
Then we come outside, and it's just like people are crying. People are so ecstatic because we're able to move forward into discovery. And what that means in discovery, we can get all these records. See, one of my classmates from OU Law School, Shalia, who is also a descendant. When you get in discovery, you can get all these records that's been hidden for all this time.
Yeah.
And that makes people want to settle cases.
Yeah.
Right? Because we don't know, so we know very little about the massacre, but we know even less from the white side.
Right.
Wow.
Everything we know is from the black side, the
Right.
victim side.
Yeah.
We know way less from what their records.
Right.
And so we were very ecstatic. In fact, we were the #1 story in the world, in the nation at the time. And then they leaked the Dobbs decision, which ended Roe v.
Wow,
Wade.
that's right. Yeah.
That's that day, right? And then 2 months later, our judge basically reversed herself.
Right.
Somebody got to it. And then about the next July, she dismisses our case. And then we had to go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And I talk about this a lot in the book. I'm not an appellate attorney. I'm a trial attorney. You know, appellate attorney is much different skill set. Trial attorney is like what you see with Johnny Cochran and people on the team. You don't really see the boring standard to lecturing. I mean, they got a good skill. I'm not trying to just. It's just not my skill set.
Right.
Necessarily.
Right.
But my team said I had to be the one to argue the case because I know it better than everybody. So I had 6 weeks once they gave us an oral argument to become an appellate attorney, and it almost put me in the grave.
Man.
I was having shortness of
So you
breath.
shifted your whole
I
mindset.
shifted everything.
Yeah.
I was working on this case. I was having shortness of breath. I thought it was my allergies. And my wife was getting me, and she said, "No, you need to go to the doctor." We get in, and she says he can't breathe very well. And they said, "Well, they bought out a wheelchair." Oh, they bought out a wheelchair for me. And I said, "I ain't getting that wheelchair. I don't need no wheelchair. It's my allergies." They look at me like, "Boy, you better get that dang wheelchair." And they take me back and they give me an EKG, and then I'm sitting in there, and the doctor comes in, and he said, "Hey, we're gonna have to hold you. You've had a heart attack. We think you have a heart attack." I'm like, "It's a heart attack." He said, "Small heart attack." And I was like, wow. So I had to go through like 6 hours of tests. I had to get the CT scan with the contrast and all the calcium and all that stuff. It was a very scary time. But it's also kind of funny because we was out in a place called Owasso, which is a very white suburb. And it was like a telehealth guy, the cardiologist, and he came on the FaceTime. He was black and I was black, and he was looking at me like, "What you doing out here, bro?" I mean, but yeah, that was a very stressful time.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell anybody. None of people knew it was my wife. My family didn't know, my friends didn't know. No one knew that happened. I took a couple of days off, got ready, did the hearing. Now again, this hearing, the first one I told you about was in Tulsa. Oklahoma City Supreme Court hearing is in Oklahoma City. That's about 100 miles from Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
No one goes up to the Supreme Court. I had never even been in argument there. It was packed with black people from North Tulsa. They got on buses, come down, watch this argument. And it was me, it was 9 white justices. They call themselves conservatives. They're not really conservatives. They sound around
Yeah.
church.
Right. Racist.
I just thought it was so amazing that I always see myself as a little country white black boy from North Tulsa. I'm in front of all these non-white justices.
Yeah.
I got all my community right there.
Right.
And at the end, I knew we had done really well, but I kind of knew we had lost because at the end, the oldest justice said, Mr. Solomon-Simmons, no matter what happens, I want you to know you've done a great job. And you've exposed the issues that I never even knew about. I said, oh, damn, we done lost.
Right.
But we got a standing ovation. And going back to the fight for your rights and your dignity, the dignity that my people felt, for our case to finally get to the Oklahoma Supreme Court and be known to the world, even though we lost, we got our dignity.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just took us on a roller coaster ride, emotionally. I mean, that's a lot. And so my question now is, what does that teach us? And what does it say to you about the American court system and how sometimes it is an instrument of redemption and other times it's an obstacle to redemption?
Well, it's mostly an obstacle to redemption, to be honest.
I'm sad to say that.
It is. I mean, I have sat with so many families who've been wronged and wrongful deaths and all type of stuff. And most of the time, the justice system is an injustice system. But it's what we have to utilize. I mean, the only option, you're going to fight one or two ways, right? You're either going to fight physically or you're going to fight with your words and what you write down. And so that's why I choose to fight. That's what we have to do. We have to continue to learn more about this system. But one of the things that is so difficult in this work, and you understand this, you have to delude yourself.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, I have to act like I don't know what the system is like.
Right.
I have to play like, see my boy Salim out there. My guy, I studied with the bar with him. That's one of the best lawyers around. Salim, I have to act like, okay, if I just work harder, if I study longer, if I prepare more, if I know the case law more, know the facts better, no matter what, I can win. And you know how frustrating it is to go in there and knowing that you are like so much better than your opponent and they're doing the bare minimum, but they can just get away with that? Like they sit there, like I'm giving a full Johnny Cochran, right? And they sit there reading and just boring and just, but the system's on this.
Yeah.
So that's difficult. Sometimes, oftentimes, more than people know, my wife knows, I be like, man, I could do something so much easier and make so much more money. But then I think about a photo that I have in the book of days after the massacre. There's two gentlemen, and they're in a tent. And one gentleman's name is B.C. Franklin, attorney B.C. Franklin. And the other gentleman is his law partner, I.W. Spears. Mm-hmm. And then they had their secretary, and they're in this tent. And they have law books around them and a typewriter. And they literally, Brother John Butler, they're literally filing lawsuits against the very people that just burnt down everything while in a tent. And so the days that I'm feeling low, the days I'm going to quit, the days I'm saying, it is not going to matter. I look at that picture and I'm inspired. And you see that picture in the book, these gentlemen are dignified again. They were fighting for rights and dignity. In a tent, they were still dignified. And so that's what we have to do. I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, I feel that.
What we are right now is a dark time. It's going to get worse. It's going to be more bloodshed. It's going to be more illegality, more corruption. And I'm not some Nostradamus. I just understand history.
Exactly.
I just know where we are in the timeline.
Yeah.
Right? This is 1888. They're doing all the same things. The whole Plessy versus Ferguson, all that time period. That was 1896. It's the same time period. Mm. And one of the things I talk about in the book, people think that wealth and money will save us. It will not. The thing that will save us is the thing that's important that built Greenwood and built Black communities all around this country. It's love, community love. And the reason I say that, a lot of people, most people have heard of Plessy versus Ferguson.
Yeah.
Most people, that's the case where they said basically be separate but equal. Of course, we never had equal. Right. What people don't realize about this Plessy versus Ferguson case is that Mr. Plessy, he looked like a white man.
Right.
And he was rich.
That's right.
And that was the reason why they sent him on that train. They said, well, you know, they won't do this to you.
That's right.
And they said, Negro, we don't give a damn. One drop of black blood, you're black. You know how much money you have. So I say that to say that many times the Greenwood story is hijacked by this black capitalism story.
Come on.
And it's not black capitalism that built Greenwood. It's community love that built Greenwood. And that community love is best exemplified in the very triggering act of the massacre. When a 19-year-old shoeshine boy, and I don't say that to diminish his profession. I say that because Dick Rowland was not a wealthy person.
Thank you.
Dick Rowland was not a big property owner.
Thank you.
Dick Rowland was not powerful. But you know what Dick Rowland was? He was a part of Greenwood. And when those white men, those 2,000 white men was outside the courthouse calling for his blood to murder him, the most powerful, the most well-organized, well-connected property owners and businessmen in Greenwood got together and went downtown and said, you will not lynch him.
That's right.
He's one of ours. That's community love. That's the radical community love we must have in this moment.
Come on, man.
That is the only thing that will sustain us. And we still may suffer the ultimate fate of Greenwood, but you will be fighting with your rights and your dignity together. And that's what it's going to take in this moment.
Yeah, real talk. One of the things I've heard you say, either on the Reed show or maybe it was in the book, you said Greenwood is still burning. Talk to us what you mean. What do you mean by Greenwood is still burning 1921, 2026?
Sure. Well, first of all, Greenwood now is a half a block. Like the traditional Greenwood area, like people say, I want to go see Black Wall Street, they go see a half a block. But Greenwood, that was in 1921, was 40 blocks.
Yes.
It was 4 square miles.
Man.
It was a size, it was bigger than Harlem, New York. So that's one aspect that Greenwood is still burning. Greenwood is still burning because Black people live 11 to 14 years less than their white counterparts. Greenwood is still burning because the highway that they put through Greenwood in the 1960s to destroy what was built back up is still there. Greenwood is still burning because Black people continue to be over-policed and brutalized by the police the same way we were over-policed and brutalized in 1921 by the police.
Right.
It's the same city. It's the same system. And so that's why I say Greenwood is still burning, because Mother Randall, whose grandmother's home was burnt during the massacre, and then they repaired that home. And then in 1980, the city came and took that home from her and gave it to a white business. That's how Greenwood is still burning.
Yeah.
And Mother Randall and Mother Fletcher and Uncle Red and everyone else, they all died without any reparatory justice. Now, our efforts, and I'm proud of this, we were able to get them privately about $1 million a piece. We were able to privately move them into a really nice healthcare facility, which I believe is one of the reasons that she's still living. Yeah. But that was all based on our private efforts.
Yeah.
It's not from the perpetrators of the massacre.
Right.
And so Greenwood is still burning, just like that oil was still pumping out until you repair it.
Right. So I'm glad you said that because, and correct me where I'm wrong, there's a Greenwood Trust that's supposed to be operational. Is it next month?
That's what they say.
So they said next month, Greenwood Trust. And this is private money. And there's a difference between philanthropy or charity and justice. And so talk to us about how does philanthropy make up for what the courts and what justice does not do?
No. Just like I tell you guys, the reparations is not radical. Refusing to pay what you owe is radical. To remember that. Remember, reparations is not charity. Reparations starts with the question. The first question is there a debt owed? That's the first question. Charity, philanthropy, donations, all of that stuff is good. It has its place, but it's not paying the debt that is actually owed.
Yes.
And it actually cannot pay the debt that's owed.
Right.
The debt needs to be paid by the perpetrators. Again, anybody that's in any relationship, you do something, make your significant loved one mad. You can't call your brother over to give flowers and say, hey, I'm doing this for him. He's good now. No, it don't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to repair the harm because you are the harm maker.
Right.
And so charity, reparations is not charity. It's payment for a debt owed. It is something that's been around in the law for over 500 years. And again, it's something we do every day in this country. And we've done it for 9/11 victims. We've done it for Native American victims. We've done it for Japanese American victims. And all these people deserved
No question. No question.
We just deserve it. Do you know that they paid reparations in 1862 when in D.C. they outlawed enslavement? They paid reparations to enslavers.
To the former slaveholders. Correct.
Do you know in Britain when they outlawed enslavement in
Right.
1808, they paid reparations to those slaveholding families to 2015? From 1808, the last payments were made to 2015. Like this is something that happens all the time in Haiti. They made Haiti pay reparations to France for getting their own freedom, right? So it's a debt owed. And so that's the language that we have to master.
Yeah.
Anytime someone's talking about, I don't believe in reparations, and you know, people say about reparations, oh, even black folk, we need to do for ourselves. Yeah, we need to do for ourselves. But they also need to pay for what they owe us. Right?
Exactly. Dr. King often said when others were referred to as raising themselves by their own bootstraps, he would clap back brilliantly with the fact that no one else on these shores has had to endure the pain and the legacy of American slavery, which was like no other expression of enslavement in the history of humanity.
100%. I have this in the book. One of the things I talked about is you hear black folks saying we are our own worst enemy. Y'all heard that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not true.
Thank you.
Like, we are our worst enemy. We got an actual enemy. We have an actual 500-year enemy called white supremacy. An ideology that infects this country. It infects black people and white people and Asian people alike. That is the enemy. And empirical studies show that black people actually work together more than other groups based on our history.
Oh.
So we internalize these stories about ourselves to make ourselves like we're the problem. We're not the problem. Doesn't that mean we should do for self and all? Yes, we should. But the system is the real problem. And so it's important that we say that when you say, oh, people try to compare us to other groups. Well, look how they do it. Look at this. No one has our history.
No one.
We can't be compared to anyone. They took everything from us. Our language, yeah, our religions, our mores, our culture,
Our families.
our names. You can't compare us to anyone else. But that's a trick to start comparing and saying what other groups do when you're not really dealing with the trauma. We are a traumatized people.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important for us, like I said again, to work within our own families and understand what's going on and work in our own families. I go back to the love, the radical love. It's like the work I do with all my cases. Most of my cases, someone is like, if you call me as your lawyer, something really bad in that. Somebody that got brutalized, somebody that got killed.
Yeah.
So my whole practice has to be built around a radical love because I'm dealing with a traumatized scenario. But that's our everyday life as black people in our communities.
So I can talk to you just forever.
And I can talk for a big too.
I'm loving it. So I got to get to this because again, we're talking reparations, repairing what has been broken. And of course, there are those who say, I want my check. What does reparations look like? What does it really entail when repair takes place, a nation gets redeemed, and a soul is restored?
Man, You talking about from the macro level or just in green?
All the above.
All the above.
Yeah.
Well, if reparations would look like, first of all, it should be a check. Let's be very clear. We live in a capitalistic society, unfortunately. So you got to have money. You need capital. So it should be a check. But it should be land bank. It should be, yes, it should be land bank. It should also be tax abatement. You know, one of the things we talked about in Green was like, listen, Mother Randall, she's been paying city taxes and expenses for over 100 years when the city owes her. There should be tax abatement. Black folks, now I pay my taxes. Let me be very clear. But we should not have to do that when we're old. We're old. Again, remember, reparations is a debt owed. You owe me. So there should be some type of tax abatement scenario. There should be mental and emotional services for Black people. That should be, there should be funding for that. And again, I don't want to say the beauty, the silver lining in Trump is that he is showing us that when there is political will, now he's a criminal, we know that. He's highly unethical, immoral, all that stuff, all of it. But a lot of things he's doing is not illegal. He has the political will to do it. And so he's showing us that if we have enough political will and bold and courageous people like what you're going to be, when you're going to be our next U.S. congressman from this area, we can have bold things to happen. So reparations can also look like health care for all.
Yeah.
It can also look like that corporations are not people, friend.
Come on now.
Right? It can also look like that you're going to make sure that this prison industrial complex is reorientated. Yeah. If you know that everybody in there is 100 to 1 crack to powder cocaine, how can these people still be sitting in prison? That's not reparatory justice at all. Off the top, it's like we're going to reduce your sentence down to what it would have been if this was equal. That's reparatory justice. I can go down the line. Maternal health care for Black women. It's reparatory justice. Making sure that people and kids have a proper education that is not devoid of their own history, erasure of their history. Yeah. That's reparatory justice. That's one of the things I'm so proud about in Tulsa, is that we caused the city of Tulsa to institute the Tulsa Race Massacre Remembrance Day, which is now a citywide holiday. So you went from when I was growing up, no one talked about the massacre, to now we have a citywide holiday every June 1st. That's huge. But it's just an executive order.
Yeah.
Meaning that the next mayor can come and get rid of it. So one thing I need for all of you to do is to join with me at redeemernation.com, because we want to push to make sure that becomes a city ordinance and it's permanent. So no kid grows up never hearing about the massacre.
Good, man. Love that. That helps. So Tiffany, this usually help me now. So we're in a climate politically where DEI, CRT, woke, all of these are bad words, not to mention reparations.
Right.
Help me and my colleagues who preach the gospel. How can we move forward preaching a gospel of reparations without self-censoring ourselves or being timid? Because one of the people you pointed out in the White House, he's bold as I don't know what. Ain't nothing scared about his game. And we're being apathetic and timid. How do we boldly preach this, live this, organize for this?
You know, when you said, like, from my perspective, even focusing on DEI as a retreatment from where we should have been, because see, DEI is a retreatment from affirmative action.
Come on.
Which is a retreatment from reparations.
Come on.
Right? So I think we focused on what we really want. We didn't ask for DEI. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it didn't really necessarily help Black people, the Black community. White women was the biggest beneficiary of those policies. We know that empirically. Period. So once you start adopting the narrative of the other side, you're already losing. And they're very good at this, right to work and all those type of things. It doesn't mean anything. So don't self-censor. Stand on the law. Stand on the 14th Amendment. Stand on the 13th Amendment, stand on the Civil Rights Act of 1866, stand on the title Civil Rights Act of 1964. These laws are still in the books. It doesn't really matter practically that they do away with DEI or whatever, because the law is still the same. But we get caught up in the words. We get caught up in the nomenclature. But the law hasn't changed. The law hasn't changed. Now, these companies that wanted to get rid of DEI because they didn't want to do it in the first place.
Period.
We kind of lost our way thinking that after George Floyd and the pandemic. Can y'all believe we had a pandemic just by the way?
Ain't that crazy?
That's crazy. Like that really happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We thought that things were really changing in this country.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to put some money behind the DEI. So I would say don't self-censor. Keep the main thing, and the main thing is reparatory justice.
I love it. I love that. So, yeah, give it up, give it up, give it up. I got one more for you. Say some young person, and I see young folk in the house, and they're saying they inspired by this, they're inspired by this conversation, and they want to know now what can they do to get in this fight. What do you recommend?
Well, firstly, I recommend is to get the book.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would say go to redeemernation.com and join with us, because what we're doing there, we're trying to galvanize people, and particularly young people, to come together and not be scattered, right? And so we have a toolkit there, and I know you say, oh, I don't know about the download toolkit, but we live in a society right now where it feels like actually being productive is being active, and that's not the same thing, or moving and just getting online. And there's nothing wrong with getting online. I'm online every day. Y'all see my Facebook, my Instagram's popping, right? The point I am making is that we must study to show ourselves approved.
Yeah.
We must spend some time actually understanding what the issues are. And so if you go to redeemernation.com, you can connect with us. And then we'll get you involved at Justice for Greenwood. We'll put you in line in something that interests you. If you want to work with descendants, you can do that. If you want to work on oral histories, you want to work on genealogy, we can do that. You want to work on narrative building, we're always looking for people to help with the narrative, to build storytelling, we can help you do that. If you want to get involved in legal work, we can help you do that. But the main thing is being in a community today. This is such a beautiful audience. It's so diverse from a racial standpoint, from age, from gender. It takes us getting with like-minded people, getting together and working on one accord. It doesn't require everybody. See, we always sometimes say, if everybody's not going to do it. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. Women in the church, Gideon's army went from 10,000 to what? 300.
300.
You just need a few dedicated people on one accord to move a mountain.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I gotta ask this because, I mean, I'm so proud of you, and I hear you on the radio, I hear about you here, there, I'm watching on social media, and you have a grueling pace. I'm hesitant to ask this question because Reverend Jesse Jackson in '88, he's running for president, and his pace was just crazy. Jackson was, I mean, he was energetic like the bunny. And so he's moving and grooving. And somebody finally asked him, they said, man, your pace is so grueling. This has to be wearing you out. You know, what keeps you going? And his response was, it beats picking cotton. And so I know this beats picking cotton, but what keeps you going, man, at this pace? Because you're doing some great work and you're making a difference.
Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, like I said, we lived in, my mother's single mom, and we were low income. My mother's handicapped, and it was cerebral palsy. And somehow, she afforded a encyclopedia set. That is blue encyclopedia set. So it's like a door-to-door salesman type thing. I don't know how she afforded it, because she only got $500 a month for me, my brother, and myself. And she got this encyclopedia set, and I would just read them over and over and over and over. And I always saw myself inside of those encyclopedias, like the people that was doing things for their people. I mean, even people as diverse that you talk about Dr. King, who's a hero of mine, but even like Joan of Arc, like just random folks that stood up, and now somebody is like remembering them 1,500, 400 years later.
Wow.
And that just always impacted me. And then to couple that with my grandparents, Mama and Daddy Brown, who I spent so much time with them because we were low income and they helped raise me. Realizing that my grandmother was a sharecropper, like literally, you're talking about picking cotton. My grandmother picked cotton. She didn't get to go to high school. My grandfather didn't get to go to high school. Somehow they were able to integrate their block, fight off white supremacists, own a home, own a boat, get my mother who was born. My mother couldn't walk till she was 5 years old. She had to go back and forth from Tulsa to St. Louis to the Shriners Hospital on multiple occasions. They would have to get on the train. And just to know those stories. My Aunt Edna, who integrated Central High School and Roosevelt Middle School, she told me that when she would go to school and they would sing, they had to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and at the end they would say, liberty and justice for all except Black people.
Shut up.
Those stories just impacted me to a point that even when mine was wilding out, I always felt like I could overcome anything because of the heritage and the lineage that I come from. So I think those things, that combination and wanting to create a better life for those who come after me is the things that keeps me going.
Man, that's powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you don't mind, we're about to wrap it because we're going to sign books, right? We're going to sign books, right? We're going to sign books. So we're going to sign books. And so, yeah. Hey, that's right.
Like taking the power. Go down.
Right, that's right.
Doors.
Close the door. Close the door.
Get you in trouble.
I didn't say that, okay? That was Damario Solomon.
They can't leave.
I want to do something because this is an amazing dude right here, and I want us to pray for him and pray for his wonderful wife because they are moving all over, and this is fire. I want you to know that, and country ain't ready for it in too many instances, and so I want us to cover Damario and his wonderful wife in prayer. So would you join me now? God, thank you so much for the gifts you have so richly invested in this couple. I thank you and praise you for every mountain you brought them over, for every trial you've seen them through. I thank you and praise you, oh God, for the brilliance and the boldness of Damario. I thank you for the partnership and love of his wife. I thank you for the wisdom and strength of his grandmother. I thank you and praise you for everyone who has impacted, inspired, and influenced him. I pray now your blessings upon him. Continue to refuel him. Keep him encouraged. May his spirit and heart remain strong. May his mind be ever sharpened for the facing of this hour. And then, God, I thank you for this night. And I ask in a special way that none of us would leave here the same way we came. But may we leave here empowered. May we leave here encouraged to do the work, to restore the soul of a nation, to redeem this nation. You're God, you're good, you're able. As a matter of fact, you're the God of our resurrected revolutionary, that sable-skinned Savior from the streets, Jesus. And so we know you did it through him. You can do it with us. And we ask it all. In his name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. All right. I'll check my thing here. Okay, you need the invitation. Okay, so I got to, I've been given some instructions so that we can do this right. So y'all got to stick with me, okay? You got to stick with me. First of all, this is church, and this man has faith, as you can hear. So we're going to give you an opportunity now to give your life to Christ, to join church. You're here, and you know you need to know this Savior.
Excuse me.
Who is the inspiration behind this man and this message? If that's you, tonight's a good night to give your life to Christ and join church. I have wonderful ministers who will receive you, cover you in prayer, and you can leave here tonight with your life being reset, redeemed, restored. That can happen tonight. If that's you, all you got to do is stand up, step out, come on down the aisle. They'll greet you, they'll meet you, they'll pray with you. And tonight will represent a fresh start and a new beginning. So come on right now. Come on right now. It's a mighty good time to say yes to the Lord. A mighty good time to give your life to Christ. Come on, do it right now. Do it right now. Do it right now.